Welcome back to the Rebuilt Parish podcast. Well, if you've been with us for the past month, you know that we've talked about conference, we've talked about small groups. Well, now we're going to combine them and talk about learning about small groups at conference. And let me just tell you what, our guest today, Susan Aldridge, is the perfect person to share with you why you should come to the Rebuilt Conference and come to the small group breakout session and the bonus interactive ministry lab that we have as a pre-conference exclusive. Join us inside the episode to hear what Susan's team is going to be sharing with you at the conference, and make sure to check out our show notes because we've got some great free resources for you. See you inside the episode. Well, hey, Susan, thank you so much for joining us today on the Rebuilt Parish podcast.
Hi, welcome everyone that's watching. We're just so excited to be here, and I'm looking forward to just sharing with you what's going on here at Nativity and what's happening in terms of the Rebuilt Conference.
Well, Susan, I'm excited for everyone to get to learn from you today. So why don't you tell them a little bit about you and what you do at Nativity?
Sure. My role, about 6 years ago, I joined as the small group director, so I've had the most fun getting to know the community here at Nativity, and my role has been to lead us through sort of annual launches and growing small groups, and then I also serve as the leader of our discipleship team. So all of our missions, our ministry, our member care, some of the other areas within discipleship and growing are also my responsibility. So yep, I just get to serve a team and get to know the community here still.
That is so fun. Now, Susan, what we're so excited about is that it's going to be you and your team helping with the small groups breakouts and the small group ministry lab at Rebuilt Conference. Is that right?
Yes. So several of us will be involved in preparing. Our ministry team and some leaders for small groups will help prepare a great presentation for those breakout sessions on getting started in small groups, and also just what we do to invite and train leaders into small group leadership. So we're looking forward to preparing for that. And being with all of you.
Well, I'm excited about that. So how does the Rebuilt Parish Conference 2025 equip parishes to develop or strengthen their small group ministries?
Well, I think like with anything, when you're sort of following the momentum of a church that's trying to grow in the same direction you are, you can gain encouragement and inspiration through just being present with others doing the same. And I know that's Father Michael's sentiment, that just coming together and then asking questions and learning how to apply it to the context that you're in can just help you sort of take what you've learned and go back and implement. So we're just excited to have people come together who are moving in the same direction. So that's the key, I think, for me. I've gone to conferences and had the same experience with one other person, but also when I've gone in a team. It just seems to be easier to do things after you come back with a group.
And that's what we're hoping. We're really hoping that people come with their whole team so that way everyone is energized and they're ready to go back home and implement. Now, Susan, what can attendees expect to learn during the small groups breakout session?
What they can learn is, just the basics about small groups, getting them started, how we've sort of planned and implemented growing a ministry team to support that, and then how a small group experience actually feels and is, and some of the best practices around doing small groups. And then also the other breakout session is really focused on leadership of small groups. And it's such a blessing to have leaders that step up, but then they do need support and encouragement along the way, and just practical ways to train them, to, again, identify the characteristics that you're looking for in a spiritual leader or in a small group leader is one of the things that they'll learn in those breakout sessions. So, that's about it.
So good. Well, let me ask you this question. What position in a parish would benefit most from coming to this session? Are we talking pastors, staff, small group leaders? Who would you recommend come to this?
Option C, all of the above, but that's just my personal, that's my personal take, because here our experience has been the support of the pastor for small group ministry and growing and investing in that ministry and growing in the community and discipleship that way. But also a small group leader or a community member who's just learning and wants to bring back information about what that looks like, being sort of like invested and involved in small groups has taught me that you have to really build a culture of community in your church if it's not something that's already happening. So I think, again, I would say all of the above, but definitely a small group point person or anyone involved in discipleship or faith formation of adults. And yeah, that's about it.
That's so good. Yes, all of the above. I was hoping you were going to say that. That's perfect. We know that there are so many breakout sessions available, but this one, my goodness, what a benefit if you can get your pastor there and some other leaders within your parish too. I love that. Well, Susan, I'm so excited for this one because we know that one of the number one questions we get asked is, how do we recruit, whether it's small group leaders or recruit volunteers? And we've got an entire early experience ministry lab that's dedicated to this. So could you explain a little bit about what this early experience small groups leader push interactive ministry lab is all about?
Yes. So you said the leaders is the focus of that ministry lab. And what we found is, again, I'll say it a million times till I'm blue in the face, that the ministry of small groups, building the culture around your leaders is what the ministry rises and falls on. So we have invested a lot of time trying to build a process, create systems, coming up with a framework for how we encourage and invite people to lead, but then also to continuously build that culture of like leader development and invitation as well. And so I think in the interactive ministry lab, I see it being a little different from the breakout session, almost like an analogy of living in a house before you buy it. You can go on a house tour. That's sort of like the breakout session and get a sense and maybe want to make the purchase. But if you've sort of lived in and experienced the challenges or the successes of the house, you kind of know it a little better. So I see us providing more sort of real conversations in the context of those participating and being able to answer questions and maybe kind of struggle through, like, how are we going to do this in your context together?
Oh, that's so good. Now, this is an early experience, so let's talk about that for a second. So this happens before the rest of the conference begins. Is that right?
It does. Monday morning, we're targeting to have people have this opportunity and then almost go into the conference experience with a little on the job, sort of like something to prompt maybe more, breakout session questioning or interest and connections after that experience. There'll be a lot of people at the conference who might be in different places when it comes to their small group ministry and raising up leaders or identifying leaders. So we hope that those meaningful connections after the interactive experience will then just launch into, again, more connections during the rest of the experience.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So for those who are thinking about coming early, they could come to Mass on Sunday morning at Nativity, and they could then be there for Monday morning for this ministry lab. That's awesome.
If I know anyone who comes to a conference probably needs some good worship or worship music or quiet time to just sort of fill their cup before they dive in. So being able to worship together and come to Mass and then, again, just kind of be here already for that experience, that would be ideal.
I love that. Now, we've got a breakout session and a ministry lab here. So they're getting two different offerings to really dive into small groups. How do these work together to provide a well-rounded learning experience at the conference?
Well, I see them, again, as when you're sort of in rows, for example, in a breakout session, you are absorbing, but then the learning and the processing of sort of what information you've received in that breakout session can be wrestled with a little and just discussed on more of a deeper practical level. And that's one of the gifts of our breakout sessions. Will also provide resources and some really tangible practical tools. But again, that collaboration that we anticipate in the interactive lab will give hopefully the confidence and again sort of that wrestling with problem solving, maybe a little coaching even in that experience.
Oh, that's so good. I love that. So they're going to get that learning in the breakout session, but they're going to get to be hands-on in that ministry lab. That's amazing.
And behind the scenes, again, when someone's talking at you somewhat, there's a little bit of an exchange with a Q&A, but this is, again, just us, people who have been experienced in the ministry, whether they're staff or the dedicated ministry teams here that sort of know it better than us sometimes because they're hands-on with the people and in the environment. So value all around, I think, for sure.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool. Now, there's going to be in this ministry lab parishes from all over, parishes who have implemented small groups, parishes who haven't but want to. How does the conference encourage attendees to collaborate and share best practices with other parish leaders?
Well, fortunately, we're equipped with resources for anyone in any situation because of some of the things that we've already created to launch groups. If you are at that sort of grassroots initial phase of like casting a vision over what small groups might mean in your parish, we already have some courses and things that we have for that experience or that situation. But we've also gotten to a point where we've worked with some other parishes who have tried and implemented and launched small groups. And now we've got our own leaders here who, after 15 years, we've sort of taken a different approach to how we need to lead and onboard leaders or guide the ministry. So we have sort of like beginning, middle, and end resources, whether they're video-based or downloadable. They're just very accessible. And I think that's what we're trying to do with the conference, is be more accessible to the churches that God wants us to influence and just walk alongside. So
that's so great. So no matter where they are on their parish journey, they can take the next right step for them.
Yes.
I love that. Now, our theme is Can You Imagine, which I'm so excited about this theme. How is this theme going to inspire parish leaders to dream big for their small group ministries?
As we've done, we have tried, not everyone's a dreamer, so there's a lot of us out here who might just be a little more practical implementers, but what I've learned is, can you imagine is like this exponential thinking, like just pushing us beyond our comfort zone and dreaming in terms of what God can do through us in our churches. And that's hit home for us in our small group experience, imagining and putting maybe a goal on the board of a certain number of leaders and then God sort of coming in alongside us and doing more than we imagined. So I think this, just the mindset that we have going into like, what can God do through us putting in this time together and being together will be, impactful all around for us too. Obviously, we're going to learn through the people that we meet and how things are working at other churches. So I can only imagine, or can you imagine just how we'll grow together?
Oh, I wasn't even thinking about that. I was thinking about the benefit for these other parishes, but you're right. All of us will grow from learning from these other parish leaders that are coming, and we'll share their opportunities too.
Absolutely. So can you imagine what we will learn from, all of us coming together in this space and time? It's pretty neat. Pretty neat.
Oh my gosh. So much. So much. Well, Susan, what about for a parish that doesn't have small groups yet in their parish? Why is the conference a great place for them to start?
Well, the meaningful connections, I would say, is the first part. The people that will be here, whether it's nativity staff or the people who have been in small groups in our community, they they have it to share, and I think that we can only give what we have, and so those connections will be important. But also the other parishes who will be here, they're sort of on the journey together. And I know I was trying to start working out this past year, and I just needed some other people. It didn't necessarily matter who they were and if we were similar, but if they were going that direction, I needed them to come alongside me. So I think it's that. If you're new to just understanding like what small groups are or how this can play out in the context of your community, you got a bunch of people coming in the same direction. It'll just increase their understanding and then maybe help them take their first step by learning from them.
So good. We did an interview with Father Michael and Henry when we started introducing small groups. And Henry had mentioned also it's just like with working out, where you're more likely to have success when you're working out with a group of people. And I love that analogy, Susan, because when you've got everybody going in the same direction, and I love how you connected it to those parish leaders helping each other, because that's just taking it one step further. When these other parish leaders are getting to meet parish leaders from other places that are also implementing these small groups, they can learn together and they can walk that walk together and share what's learning and share or what's working, maybe where their struggles are, what they're learning along the way. That's where some massive growth can happen.
Absolutely. And some days, it's a little much to reach out to your internal team. I know I've reached out to some parishes that I just have met at a different conference, and their willingness to help, there's almost like something about it, like their willingness to just help is higher some days than others. And so I think that accessibility and just kind of even prayer or encouragement, not only learning, but just prayer and encouragement in this process is key. It helped us.
Yeah, definitely. Where small groups are beneficial for parishioners, having other parish leaders you can lean on, just like a small group, is helpful on the parish level too. I love that.
Yes.
So, Susan, what would you say to someone who they're on the fence about if the small group sessions are right for them, or if they and their team should come to the conference in general? What would you say to them?
Well, I would say from a small group standpoint, we see it as a catalyst to almost the life of the parish. And what I mean by that is, in the context of small groups, we're helping our community, experience the spiritual growth and a place to have meaningful conversations and faithful connections. But then we're seeing it as just such a catalyst to discipleship, whether it be service or missions or finding their purpose, and actually growing this desire to be the body of Christ and to sort of serve and give back in their community. I think that's priceless. But I also think if they're on the fence, just the talented people that are putting this conference together, and the excitement they have about it, I want to be a participant,
Yes.
It's just, there is a lot of energy, and there's also a lot of thoughtful prayer happening around this. So I just feel like it will be a sacred space and place in time to launch everyone in participation to that next place that God's leading them. So.
Oh my gosh. Well, Susan, I'm so excited. Well, first of all, I'm excited for conference. I'm excited for the parishes that are going to get to learn from you and your team, because you'll all be there, right? So if someone has a question about small groups, they can say, "Hey, Susan, can I ask you a question?"
Yes. I mean, this is your free pass to engage with and interrupt any of our team, our discipleship team, whether it's small groups or any other area. This is your permission, because that's what we want. We want to be accessible and approachable.
Oh my gosh. Well, what a blessing for all of the people that are coming to the conference this spring. Susan, we're so excited and grateful to have you. Is there anything else you'd like to share with us?
No, just again, the timing of the conference and whether or not you're coming or anticipating God doing something in your parish, I just want to encourage you that if there's any open door for growth and opportunity, this might be the open door to come together with us and to see what happens. Can you imagine? That's
Can you imagine?
kind of how I feel.
Yes. Can you imagine? Well, can you imagine seeing yourself at Church of the Nativity June 2nd and 3rd, 2025? I can see it. Can you, Susan?
I can see it. Join us.
Join us. Absolutely. Well,
and I'm a hugger, so watch out. I don't. Can you imagine?
Can you imagine? We should have a hug counter and see how many hugs you'll be giving out over the course. I can see it now. Oh my gosh. Yeah. Perfect. Well, Susan, thank you so much for pouring into our listeners today. We're excited for you to get to inspire them in person at Rebuilt Conference. And for our Rebuilt community, thank you for joining us today. We are so grateful that you're here, and we can't wait to hug you at conference. Thank you, and we'll see you next time.